Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Sudeshananda Siri, as correctly said, and came from Sri Lanka. So I'm the managing director and chairman of Ceylon Waste Management Group of companies in Sri Lanka and UAE. So, I just came to join as a panelist, but, I was just promoted, I don't know why, because of the one intended session chairman, Mr. Subha, was not representing me, maybe the personal grounds. So then that task came to my head, and before I start, I would be thanking to the organizing committee of World CSR Day, and actually, from today morning itself, you have heard a lot of, the technical staffs from the people, from the speakers and panelists, and you have discussed many staffs raise questions. And we are here as industrialist point of view, how we are going to comply, how we are going to support by the waste management through the CSR activities. So, rather than I'm introducing the panelists, so I'm just asking panelists itself to start their the introduction by themselves, and starting from Mr. Karan.
Good evening, everyone, and what a pleasant day it has been listening to so many speakers here talking about environment and sustainability. A little background about myself is that I'm the founder and CEO of the recycling company. We are into electronic waste recycling and solar panel recycling, and we have been doing this for over 10 years now. My story is that I used to work for an audit firm, and as destiny would have had it, I got a chance to visit some of the biggest mines. And every time I would go to these mines, the only thing that would stir within me that I want to do something where I can give back to the environment. And that's how this journey started. So I'll keep the information very brief and then looking forward for more questions.
Hello everyone, very good evening. My name is Anushri. I lead Environment and Sustainability Department for Atero Recycling. At Atero, we recycle electronic waste and lithium-ion battery wastes. And I do have an experience in energy transition in the Global South, partly in academics, now into core sustainability, carbon footprints, accounting, and GHG emissions. So a lot into energy transition, and looking forward for the day-to-day.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Navya Singh. I'm the founder of a digital climate newsroom. It's called News with Navya. I've worked with mainstream media. Back then, I used to talk about defense, politics, women's safety. Started News with Navya 3 years ago to focus on climate, to focus on the Bharat story of climate action, on solutions, green businesses, and of course, ancient traditional wisdom.
Diversified panel I do have to moderate today. So, our topic is smart waste management, role of AI, information, on internet, on technology, and automation in recycling. So I prefer to ask from Mr. Karan Thakur initially. His question is how he's going to handle the e-waste management and the waste management and the solar panel management in the industry as per the requirement of the ESG requirements.
Great, thank you for that question. Fundamentally, let us understand that what electronic waste is. We are surrounded by electronics, like from mic to mobile phones, electrical. So a global definition of electronic waste is that any electronic and electrical item, when it becomes obsolete, it is called as e-waste. So you can only imagine that the kind of electronics that we are consuming, and hence the electronic waste that we are going to generate. India generates close to 2 million tons of electronic waste every year, out of which only 10% is recycled in the formal sector. And now, waste management as an industry has 3 main pillars. Information, how do you educate people that this is hazardous? For so many years, I don't think we really realize that a phone sitting in your pocket could be potentially hazardous. It is only now that we are realizing that the manner in which we recycle can be hazardous to environment, can be harmful to the people involved in the informal trade, and also there are a lot of resources that can be recovered much more efficiently to ensure that as a country we are self-dependent. So waste management has three main pillars: education, collection, and recycling. Now one can imagine that from a household or from an organization, the quantum and the nature of electronic waste that comes out. When I say electronic and electrical, it is very heterogeneous and it is very varied. So what happens is, right from collection till transportation, till the time it reaches a facility, there is a lot of mixed material that is there. Now, the minute we apply IoT, or the minute we apply artificial intelligence to this thing, there can be data that can be captured right from the beginning. If you imagine that when we are talking about a recycling plant in our factory, there are tons of electronic waste that comes every day. Now this is all scattered. Different things. No two computers are same, no two phones are same, no two solar panels are same. I'm so glad that, can you imagine that even a solar panel is now considered as electronic waste? We are talking about India's renewable growth story, but have you ever wondered that even solar panel waste is going to become a very big challenge in the years to come? And officially it has been considered as a part of electronic waste. So I'll touch upon it later. But the minute this electronic waste comes to a recycling plant, you're looking at material which is absolutely varied. Now, for a recycler, what is very important is that can there be data where immediate analysis can be done, that what is the kind of composition of that material? What are the core metals? See, an electronic device is nothing but a composition of 4 or 5 things: metal, heavy metal, precious metal, plastic, glass, and hazardous substances. So if I have that technology and if I have that data, that if I'm sitting on 10,000 pieces of phone, which phone can have what kind of a metal in it, then my recovery strategy becomes much faster. These are the kind of applications that we will see as we move forward. Robotics and a lot of recovery mechanism that will make life a lot easier for recyclers.
So Karan, can you tell that, you were talking about the composition, the chemical compositions of the metals of the electronic waste. So what are the technologies that you are using to identify the metals? The SRF, SDF, what are the technologies that you all are using?
So currently, like if I were to talk about electronics or if I were to talk about solar panel, the first step is dismantling. The first in fact step even before that is sorting, because it is very important. Now there is optical sorting that also is being developed quite a lot, that at the first level itself, material can be sorted into different key categories and can be categorized into different, like if I were to understand that, what are the key metals: copper, aluminium, gold, silver. So it can be segregated through that after we have put in the giant shredders. Once done, then dismantling happens, and then there are multiple chemical processes where this can be done. We have furnaces to further ensure that we extract other metals also. Silver recovery from solar panel is also something that has become very critical now.
Anushri, you are very much, the expert on the sustainability for Ataro Company Limited. Just tell me how recycling impact on the carbon minimization with Ataro's operation.
Right, thank you for the question. So when we talk about waste, e-waste especially, it's not a normal domain of waste that we generally speak about. So this should be taken as in a different streamline where you can call it as a resource efficient manufacturing unit as well. For example, at Atero as well, we do not want to claim only as a recycler, but also as a manufacturer of like an urban miner, where we mine minerals and metals from the end of life products. And a good question, as you really asked about how is it different in carbon footprints or greenhouse gas emissions, how does it matter? So what we started to do is we started accounting our own greenhouse emissions. Then we started to account, for example, under EPR, if any producer gives us their electronic waste, we also tell them how much are you avoiding in terms of greenhouse gases when you give it to us after recycling. For recycling, how much are you avoiding? So now we started accounting these things and got an ISO standard as well. The ISO standard called 14064, which talks about the greenhouse gas emission. Something very unique that we did was called life cycle assessment. Somebody in the previous panel was also speaking about life cycle of a product. Now, these things become important if we want to explore in the outer world as well. So if we are partnering with EU somehow, now there's a new policy under EU framework which talks about CBAM. CBAM is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Now, only 6 products are listed in the CBAM, which is aluminum, steel, iron, cement, etc. So whatever product, if for example they are buying from India and bringing to EU, they would need an entire life cycle assessment or carbon footprint of the product. In that case, we are already being market ready. And when I say we, I'm not only talking about Atero, but when we talk about Viksit Bharat, with our net zero goals by being carbon in climate resilient, so we are moving one step closer to it. I mean, there should be more recyclers, more manufacturers who should focus on these things, especially after SEBI came up with the new BRSR guidelines that top 1,500 listed companies have to account their greenhouse gas emissions. This is how we are also partnering with our stakeholders, and these are playing important roles. First of all, accounting is important. Then our next step is how to lower your energies. So we are moving the same path of decarbonization. And yes, and electronic waste is just one domain. Lithium-ion battery, again, very energy-intense processes that we work into is another domain. So, I mean, at this time, the whole world saw a surplus of about 1 terawatt hours of, especially lithium-ion battery. And in 2023, it was, talking only about India, it was 16 kilowatt hour for India. And in 2035, it's going to be 248. So it's going to be a big jump. And in that case, more end-of-life products are coming in, which might have critical metals with them, hazardous metals in them, and it might eventually seep into the soil, if not formally recycled through formal recyclers. So there's a lot of more hazardous situations along with critical metals in them. So it's a multi-facet domain that we have to look forward. And carbon accounting is something which might help in certain ways, not only for the Indian players, on an international platform as well. And the government of India has brought up new intensity rules, emission intensity rules, where this is going to be very important for any other stakeholder in this domain.
Well, refining of precious metal, let's say the gold or silver, by using the electronic waste or any other industrial waste, is saving carbon emission, right? I mean, there is a carbon footprint decreases by the refining of precious metal by e-waste. Is that right?
Right. I'll just give you a number. For example, when we recycle aluminum by the process of hydrometallurgy at our recycling unit, and we made a life cycle assessment. It is again an ISO standard, where again very cost-intense process again. So we saw a difference in delta that we use 78% energy less compared to aluminum that you're mining. In gold, we save about 99.6% of carbon footprints. Again, it is gold which is embedded into the electronic waste in the PCB. We extract from the PCB, refine and recycle and again reuse it. And again, as you compare to the gold mining processes, it's a huge difference. So somehow it is, urban mining is becoming an alternative to the normal mining sector. Of course, it will take a long time to reach there, but this is again an alternative that one cannot decline.
Now we are coming from the different sectors. She's a journalist. She's running here and there. Maybe geographically she is going to investigate, maybe in a mode of investigation, maybe mode of collecting information. So you are seeing the waste management, smart waste management in a different angle. So what is your opinion about this?
I think while my co-panelists bring in a very technical and a ground zero approach to this entire discussion, what we as a newsroom have seen is that a lot of times the general audience or people in this domain tend to use waste management and waste reduction as interchangeable words, right? We tend to think that waste reduction is also, waste management is also similar to reducing waste, but that's not the case. And all the technologies and all the modern, innovation that we have in this space cannot really guarantee the fact that we are reducing waste. Any particular city in this country can have the best of the technologies, can have a lot of AI tools to tackle waste, but it could still be drowning in waste because we don't know how to, we don't understand responsible consumption, we don't understand how to manage waste. Having said that, I feel from the kind of stories we've observed and the kind of behavior we've been able to map, of course there's a lot of help when it comes to AI, a lot of help when it comes to IoT and so many other things, but I feel mannerism and behavior really needs to change. Say, for example, if I'm living in a village in India and I eat a banana and I throw the peel on the ground, it's all right. because it'll eventually go back to the soil. I can't do that with a single-use plastic, right? So that idea really needs to change for people to understand how to manage waste properly, which is why we do a lot of stories around ancient wisdom, traditional wisdom, to remind people how we've always existed, in a way where we understand waste, we understand our relationship with waste, we know when to stop consuming something and how to manage it responsibly. So there are quite a lot of tools for sure, but I think awareness and the foundation really has to be strong before we implement any of this.
Yeah. How do you identify the traditional waste management techniques with the smart waste management techniques?
Right. So I think, say for example, when we talk about sanitation or when we talk about water, our relationship with water has changed in the past few decades, in a sense that if we look at the recent cases that happened in Indore or Gandhinagar, where there were so many water contamination stories, that happened because now waste or sanitation or dealing with waste has now become an afterthought. We first build and then we realize what to do with it when things go wrong, right? We're not building with it. I think that's what has really changed, because whenever we've cited stories from earlier civilizations, we've always believed that they knew how to build with solutions and make it a part of the ecosystem. I think that has changed. And very small things, like when we travel to tier 2 cities or smaller cities, bigger cities as well, we've always had this culture of cleaning. Right, we'll clean the kitchen before we sleep, we'll clean the shop when we open the shop in the morning. What happens when we do that in a public space? Because of rapid urbanization, because of how we've grown as a country, the gap between cleanliness at home versus cleanliness outside home has really changed. So whatever is outside the home, we feel it's the city's responsibility to take care of it. I think that really needs to go back to how we've always understood waste.
Well, if you take to the waste management, since I am coming from the dough waste management, electronic waste management is the key of ours. So electronic waste is a silent giant, silent killer of the environment. So everyone, focusing on the general waste because it makes ugly situations, bad odors. But electronic waste, we can see that, the damage to the soil, damage to the environment, ecosystem, we don't monitor, even we don't see. So what is your opinion? I'm asking the entire panel, how do you see that?
I have realized over a period of time that growth and technology go hand in hand. Like in the previous session, somebody said that our per capita consumption of electric consumption is still 1/3. So we are going to see exponential growth as a country. And why not? There are things that as a country we should see. What it definitely means is that consumption of electronics per capita is also going to increase. Now look at the irony. We are talking about renewable energy. The solar panel got invented, but it is a complex product. Like we talk about, like you rightly highlighted, that electronic waste is special, and so did Anushri also shared the same thing, because it is hazardous and these are complex product. If I throw a solar panel once it is obsolete outside in the open, the glass is going to shatter somehow and get in touch with the soil and it's going to harm the environment. So technology and electronics and growth go hand in hand, fortunately and unfortunately. So recycling is probably the only solution. There is a lot of self-awareness and there is a lot of consumer behavior that as a country we need to change. But at the same time, what is absolutely important is that how fast can our recycling standards catch up. Now, if you look at artificial intelligence, so I'll give you an example. Maybe 10 years back, the way we would go and collect electronic waste, either from a corporate office or from an individual household, was that a vehicle would go, they would collect things, it would go the entire cycle, come to the recycling factory and then recycle it. Now, there is an option where the minute it is loaded, you know exactly the composition of your electronic waste. Correct? We are talking about resource recovery and urban mining and how recycling can become the answer to a lot of things in this country. So this is where technology and artificial intelligence and smart waste management can change a lot of things. One thing as an organization, what we are only trying to be very conscious is that we believe in a lot of inclusivity. So we also want to ensure that a lot of jobs are not lost, because there is a lot of manual labor which is involved. There are people who do sorting, there are people who do segregation. Over a period of time, as an organization, one of the biggest challenges for us would be how does this go hand in hand? How do we also train these people? But that, say for example, I'm an LG or a Samsung, I will not only trace what is my carbon emission and life cycle assessment till disposal, but also after disposal. Who's my recycler? What are their carbon emission? And very soon that will also get loaded in the entire value chain. So we are looking at that journey for sure. And I hope I have answered you. In fact, I would also request, maybe you should also share your thoughts. You yourself has so much experience, and like you said today, it is just coincidence that you had to become the session chair. Maybe towards the end, you can also please share your thoughts about your journey.
Thank you, Karan. The most of the areas you have been covered. As well as
sorry for that.
No, that is all right. Anyway, the intent of this the panel discussion is to create the awareness and highlight the points. So whoever do it, that is fine. As well as Anushri also covered the rest of the other part. So Anushri, rather than focusing on the same question, I'll put the practical question to you. That is EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility in India. So how does EPR works in India to maximize the collection of waste?
Right. So EPR, like for e-waste, 2016 it started, and 2021 for lithium-ion battery. So it has been a great move in the direction, especially not only for producers, also for the recyclers, of course for the environment as well. But there's a big gap at this moment. And the gap which I personally feel, and also the industry feels as well, is that there's a lot of focus on compliance and aggregation. But this, and more, attention has to be given to the purity of products when we recycle and bring out, and also to the environmental costs. So which is not a major focus of the government as of now, but we are putting it our own from our sides about how and why purity should be an important factor, because if we want to be in the supply chain, if we want to close the circular loop, and when we speak about circular economy, so what is the economy part in circular economy? We have to talk about the purity of products as well. So once the purity of products match for the industrial grade, there's a different kind of demand in the market. And when I speak about demand, for example, in the EU framework has brought that from 2031, 2030, all cobalt has to be 6% recycled, lithium has to be 6%, lead has to be 85% recycled. So that's a market of demand which is being created over there. Eventually it will come to India as well. This is going to be important in the EPR section, which the government has to take care of at certain point of time, because at this time the major focus is on the compliance and aggregation part, which is again a good deal to begin with, but maybe from now on there's more towards it. That the volume of e-waste that is coming is like a tsunami of waves coming in. In like 10 years, it's going to be humongous, and I don't think as a country we are still ready for the capacity which is coming in. When we talk about the EVs, the end of life, the OEM waste, so it's going to be a tsunami of wave of the waste, and we are still not ready. And especially when we talk about the Indian context of the pricing of the metals which is recycled, it is as normal as the normal other metals. Whereas there's a lot of energy involved, intense work has been involved to get out that gold from that PCB. Like a whole PCB might have just like for 0.02% of gold, or maybe 0.001% of gold. To extract gold from that and again sell it back to the market, there has to be some premium acknowledgement for the purity of metals as well. And EPR again does not focus much on the environmental cost as of now, but again majorly on the compliance and aggregation.
Yeah. Navya, so you are basically into media. So what type of, both Mr. Karan as well as Anushri highlighted the gaps. So to minimize or mitigate the gaps, what kind of role that the media could apply here?
I think, first of all, it's of course whenever we talk about something like waste or anything that's often seemed technical, I think we need to talk without the jargon. That's something that really helps when you talk to common people, when people who are really at the receiving end of this. Also awareness that goes beyond just headlines, awareness that goes beyond just announcements. There's so much being done when it comes to managing waste. There's so many startups working in this space. There's so much technology. Even then, basics are missing. That's because we're not talking about it consistently, and we're not talking in a language that really resonates with people who are at the receiving end of this. And I think that's what we're trying to change. all the kind of stories we do around waste, we try to make it more relatable for people to understand, either in their city or their village or their state, because it really needs to hit them hard, and only then they will act. If they don't understand it, they won't act on it. Having said that, I've also worked with mainstream media, and I've seen how a lot of times we tend to, bring out waste issues or anything that's often technical as a report, as something that's not relatable for me. So it's important to bring out, multi-format content to make it more interesting for people to understand, and that's what we do. And the language really needs to be simple. There needs to be a lot of success stories. Yes, there's a lot of doom and gloom in this space and other domains as well. That there's so much that's already being done, whether controversial or not, but there's so much that's already being done. And not just from the point of view of reducing waste or talking about technology, also in terms of green employment. I think Karan highlighted that. And that's extremely important. Whenever I've interacted with, and we work very closely with educational institutes, what we try to highlight is whether or not we accept it, these are green jobs. And eventually, these are the kind of industries that will need fresh talent, young talent. And it's important to bring out these opportunities.
Well, before we conclude this thing, so prefer to, give chance to the audience to raise any queries is there.
Hello, hi, this is Shreya Sudhir. I'm from the Bajaj Electricals. I just want to say something, like we are using word called waste. When we use waste, we are talking about dustbin. We need to think about smart resource management. When see the resource, it will go for the recycling. I think every communication has to be changed right now. Waste for us is always in the dustbin only. We are just throwing everything. If we can start using the word called we are doing the resource management, it will go for the recycling. And then mindset will be changed, the shift will be changed. Otherwise, nobody will come for the green job also, because green job linked with your waste. We need to think about something different words where we can talk with the youth and they can be part of this. Again, that I just think for this whole aspect, more thing is like mindset change. Because people are using the resources and they are throwing in dustbin, so it will not going to work. They have to use the resources and send for the recycling. Then I think we'll work together for the same cause. Thank you.
Rather than question, is a kind of adding the intellectual content, what she knows, and really appreciating. Any questions?
Thanks for the enlightening discussions on the panel. I'm Supriya Bansal. I'm a sustainability consultant. And this question is more for you. We see that, the emphasis of solar, there's emphasis on scope 2 reductions, the emphasis on, giving more of renewable energy from grid, right? And reduce the grid consumption, take more from renewable power. At the same time, there is an effect on the environment from the solar panels, as you just touched upon it when you started your discussion. There is a dilemma as a consultant when you're advising companies that you have to go green, at the same time reduce your scope 2 emissions. What is the question mark? Because many news articles I'm reading, is solar really a renewable source in a long term? So since you are into this sector, can you throw some light on it?
For me, no?
Yeah.
Questions for me?
Yes, Karan.
So I'll share my personal view that what I have realized is when anything is invented, unfortunately, it is only after years of usage we understand the overall environment impact. And fortunately, unfortunately, this is my analysis. When you talk about humanity, your immediate problem is something you'll focus on. So when we look at India as an economy, the immediate requirement is renewable energy. And energy, we don't want to be dependent on others, especially right now when there is so much of geopolitics going on. So if I was also sitting at the top, I would definitely say that, at least for now, let me go to the next step. So this is what has been happening across industries, which is where we come up with innovation. And it is only after after many years we understand that what is the impact it has on environment. So currently, solar is a very big solution. While I also advocate and I also say that it's a complex product, but you look at the kind of energy independency, that reliability that it is giving to a country, it is phenomenal. We are looking at 500 gigawatts of renewable energy. Solar currently I think is 140, solar will be 300. So we are looking at massive installation. So currently the time is where we are consuming. Yes, this will definitely create a lot of waste. So I think the answer to this is balance, where we can try to come up with some strategy where, you know, people are aware. You'll be surprised, in a city like Mumbai, we get so many calls from housing societies that we have solar panels that have come out. See, because solar panels, to a lot of us, solar panels can get obsolete only after 25 years, but that is not true. There is a lot of damage that happens during transportation and installation also. And second thing is, it is just like any other electronic product. If I'm a Lenovo, I've sold you a laptop, I will not be happy that I've sold you one. I will come up with a new technology. I would want to sell you more. That's what happened with phones and every electronic device. Similarly, we will see a lot of technological upgradation in solar panels also, where if there is a solar farm, there will be somebody who will come and say that, you know, you can generate more electricity for lesser number of panels, your ROI will change. So we'll see technology upgradation in every which field. So as a sustainability consultant, the idea is that, can you have a foresight and say that, let me be responsible for my waste. Whenever there is end of life, I take that accountability right now that I will give it back to the right person. India is one of the few countries where extended producer responsibility as a rule has been working very well. 2022, where it got solidified, where there is a compensation and penalty on people who don't do it. Solar companies are also included in this. So all solar companies, OEMs who are there, they also have to ensure this. So it will catch up. So you would have much more knowledge on a lot of things. So best thing is to tell your clients that, can we have an approach where, you know, where we are looking at the last mile disposal also. And like somebody said that, let us look at resource and recovery, because it all adds up in our kitty as a nation. Like, you know, if we try to ensure that circularity, electronics and e-waste is a best example where circularity can be achieved. We are trying to, in fact, introduce a course on circularity with a lot of leading institutes, but this is a classic example. It can be achieved. We have to keep trying.
So I prefer to conclude this with panel discussion with adding my comments as well for that as well. So actually any product generated or manufactured as a solution for the issue. So all the products, all the invention made by the scientists, and the solution also will be getting by the scientists. So don't worry about it. R&D is there. So we could be doing that. Thank you very much.